Hello and welcome to Behind the Paddle podcast with me, Paulson and Victoria. So, if you're watching and potentially listening, I don't know how exactly I'm gonna edit this right now, but we'll figure that out. I am currently looking real nerdy with headphones on and my glasses. I wear glasses, I know. It's for reading. But yeah, today's episode is going to be a little bit different, quite unique, I want to say. So I have had multiple people message and ask for um how you say to be on the podcast as guests, but they haven't been in person. They want to be on Zoom. Where because like they live far away or whatnot. I'm used to going to like London or Scotland to interview people, or to do a podcast episode on a certain topic. However, going to like Australia isn't possible. Not right now, at least, just for a podcast episode. And so, yeah, I figured I really do need to figure out how to do Zoom. Like, I've been on Zoom before as a participant, but never a host. So if you're watching this, hi. It looks a bit different. And I don't know how yet I'm going to edit the sound, but we'll see. So today we have a lovely guinea pig, which has offered himself up to me in the way of me testing the waters with Zoom. And I didn't realize I did realize you had to pay for Zoom, but yeah, I've just forked out over 100 quid. So this better be worth it. I need to do at least 12 Zoom calls this year, hosting them to make this worth it. But yeah, so today's episode is Whispers Through the Wire, the reality of online domination. Now, so what that means did I already do the intros? I don't know. Well, this is Behind the Paddle podcast. I'm Paulson Victoria. Intros done. I don't know if I did though. God, my memory's so bad. But yeah, so we're gonna talk about online domination, specifically phone sex, and yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. We're just gonna focus on phone sex, and we're gonna start. We're gonna talk. So, before the days of sexting and pay per minute audio, there was the rotary phone and the sultry voice on the other end of the sex line. She wasn't in latex, nor lingerie. She was in your ear. And for many submissives, that was enough to fall to their knees. These days, you've got so much more out there, but we're gonna explore why some subs do choose to still do phone sex. So, brief history. In the 1970s to 80s, there was the rise of pay-per-minute phone sex hotlines, often advertised late at night. Feminized power, control via suggestion, and scripted fantasies. We had the 1990s to 2000s. The internet shifts power again. We've got chat rooms, we've got Yahoo groups, we've got the early femdom forums, we've got cyber dom sub dynamics that emerge with chat-based rituals. And then, of course, the 2010 onwards, oh my god, it erupts with so much life, the internet. You've got platforms like NiteFlirt, Skype, Tumblr, OnlyFans. Oh my god, it all explodes. Instant audio, erotic hypnosis, real-time humiliation. a digital dungeon with no walls. Oh, it's bliss. And it is really a shock to the system with people who were not used to this growing up, not used to this in their 20s. Back in the day where it was the dial ups, where in the 2000s, they had the internet, but it was a little bit of internet. It wasn't like what we've got now where you can instantly cam with somebody, you can instantly talk to somebody. Porn is so much more accessible these days than it ever was. The porn industry is booming and it is growing by the second. So, why seek out online domination? Why seek out DOMs? Well, accessibility. Not every sub can access in person scenes due to location, disability, privacy, and their own scheduling. I know multiple clients who they find it really, really difficult to find time to wank off or just for a simple chat because it's not we're going to go dive more into this a little where it's not just about wanking off, getting a hard on, coming, having an orgasm, because it can just be about the connection, it can be about talking. And I'm so very excited for this episode. And yeah, you've also got the fact that this can be anonymous. You, as the submissive, you, as the person who calls up, you can give us a fake name. You can give us fake details. You can tell us about that fantasy of yours. It does not need to be real. It doesn't. It's as simple as that. We do not need any of your details. You choose whether you want to give that to us or not. But we'll get into the red flags of some dominance later on, which goes with that. But just gonna leave it at that. I'm gonna leave you on the edge of your seat with that. And of course, you've got the fantasy side of it where the voice becomes everything, whether it's your voice, the dominance voice, both of your voices. It builds a persona. The more you talk with somebody, the more of a connection, the more of a story, the more of a fantasy you can build. And of course, that fantasy can come with rituals and it comes with so much control without even meeting. You don't need a flogger to dominate. I can have you crying just by whispering your name. But on the other end of the line is a human. Sometimes vulnerable, sometimes unprepared. So, let's talk to one, shall we? So, we're going to be speaking to Gareth, a submissive man who has engaged in online Dom sub relationships over the past 5 years or so, mostly through the phone, texts, and he's had a few sessions. He's going to talk about the highs and the lows and the hidden dangers of letting somebody in your mind. So let's add him to the call. Yay! It is still recording. It is still working. I was afraid that it would tell me not to carry on because of the recording. So we're going to dive in. Do you want to introduce yourself? Give us a little backstory.
I'm Gareth, and I'm happy to be here today and to discuss with Miss Victoria the ins and the ins and outs of the podcast today.
Yeah. So, We are going to talk about what first drew you to phone-based submission.
Well, first thing I found was the links through Twitter to Domline, and going through Domline really helped me get into things, and I was really happy to try and find someone and look in the session with.
So, can you take me back to the very first time? What were you feeling and what were you searching for?
I was searching for a dom that would do sessions and as well as phone calls, and I was quite nervous because you have to travel to go and see a dom at first, which is, even though it was 2 hours away, but still 2 hours is a great distance by trains. You have to swap trains twice, and I'm actually going into the session itself because I've never done it before, and visual seeing it and visualizing it is can be quite nerve wracking as it is.
Okay. So before we spoke, we did try to do the Zoom call, but then I didn't realize that I'd have to actually pay for Zoom,
That's
and I
okay.
only had a few minutes left. You mentioned beforehand about OF, about
Yeah.
OnlyFans. So can you just talk me through that, your first steps with
Mm.
that?
Miss Frankie Babe, as she calls herself, as because she's a dom. I was with her for 5 years on OnlyFans, and we did multiple customs calls and Skypes because she was all the way in Yorkshire, as I'm about say 200 miles away, and it's a bit hard to say pay for a session, pay for train, pay for an overnight stay, as you can imagine, it would cost a lot to do that in traveling. So
Mm-hmm.
it was mostly with customs. 'Cause I had nearly say 25 customs. I was booking a custom every week to have different things to play in a session through role play and POV, as they say, point of view.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So we've already just hit on some things where like there's a lot of cost that can go into it, especially if you live in a certain area where it's not as easy to access the kink.
No,
So
it's not. No,
mm,
sorry, I didn't mean to jump in then. I was just going to say, where I am, like I was saying earlier, my area is like, say you order something, it's not like you can order and get it straight away. Whereas like in London, London's more active where you can like make a phone call at like 9 o'clock in the morning and it's ready by 11 o'clock. Whereas down here, you got to make a phone call 24 hours in advance, but then you have to travel 2 hours and swap trains, then get back and swap trains again to get where you are basically.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So when you wanted to explore in-person play, was it about privacy or safety? Were you nervous?
Yeah, it was more about the privacy was good because it was in because we were in a private house. And I was worried about my safety because she said things on the phone at the time. You have to do things, and I said the things I didn't like, but then they're saying things you have to do. But then I didn't click on straight away. That was a red flag. Whereas you should have a safety word put into place to say if this role does go a bad way, you gotta stop the role basically and say what's wrong. There was no safety words, there was no safety nets. It was more just going in and you're just straight into the session basically.
Mhm. So this was a bad session that you had? But did
Y-
this go from phone to in person?
Yes, I was on a call with somebody and I asked about these sessions because I've seen this person work over the years since and I thought this person was a proper professional, but I didn't see the red flags as I should have done basically. And when she asked me to do something I didn't like, I told her on the phone that's not exactly what I'm interested in. I'm interested in exploring something different, but she says you have to do it. You could go do as I tell you.
Mhm.
Basically, that's. But I didn't. But I did try to say basically maybe in a session there should be a way of stopping it, but it wasn't a way of stopping certain things.
Yeah, okay. So we'll come back to that in a few more questions. But
That's
it's good
okay.
that we've hit on it. So as a lovely little follow-up question, was it more about for you eroticism or did or was it emotionally intimate right away? So like phone chat and things.
Yeah, the phone chat was strictly professional. I seen because like we had to go for the ins and outs of meeting and go by calls and arranging the bank transfers. And then the first session was getting to know me. Like she said what she wanted, well, the way I have to be, the way I should be, and things I need to do in the future. And I was like, "Oof, okay, but I didn't know that was going to come up. Then we had like an hour session, and then she was watching me the entire time, making sure I was paying full attention and I wasn't like daydreaming in the way. Like you could get lost in the fantasy. Like if you're enjoying it, there's more of a chance of like enjoying it, but you're not supposed to enjoy it.
Mhm. Mhm.
But then that's the point of the kinks, where there's like you're supposed to enjoy the session as well as you're going into a domination session to be maybe punished or playing a role. You're going to get punished anyway. So if you do a good job, that's the whole point basically. I mean, well, that's the way I saw it. I mean, even if you do good, you're going to get punished anyway, which is the whole point of the of being sub to dom basically.
Mhm.
But that's just my opinion, maybe.
So I think that varies. There's things like punishments, so like where it is a fun punishment, but I would say it definitely varies on different dynamics of that dom sub relationship, whether you're always going to get punished. Because
Yeah,
I know for when I have sessions, we do firstly talk about boundaries, we talk about safe words, we talk about limits, and we ultimately do talk at the start of the session about what do you want out of this? Do you want to come? Do you want to be played with down there or whatnot? Do you want me to take any note of your private area? Or is it solely up to me if you get to come or if um, it could be different in the way of they get the pleasure out of serving you, and that is their theoretical in a mental state, their orgasm. Sometimes they don't actually have to come, and sometimes they don't actually have to get punished. So it really, I think it depends on what relationship you have with the submissive, because I wouldn't say all of my sessions or the relationship between dom and sub is defined just with punishments, but I can understand from your experience why you can think that,
yeah,
and we're going to definitely go more into that. But when you first did the lovely chats with the OF model, did you do it from being horny? Did you, if you would like to discuss that? It,
yeah. It was, yeah, it was. Well, it wasn't just being on. It was about fulfilling the fantasy of actually speaking with her through the camera and being dominant. Actually, like basically it's basically the outfits is what it's all about. Basically, like the dominant full leather, the thigh high boots, the leather trousers, a leather top or crop top or whatever, a leather jacket, hot gloves and a hat. Really, like all being all being submissive in person and dominated through the phone to make it more lively as you can't. Again, like I said, to travel all the way up north again on trains, hotels, paying for the session would come to a lot, but doing it through the phone was more being submissive and then having a reward. The
yeah.
reward was to come.
Mm.
It was
So,
a reward at the end, but that's the whole point of the Skype call basically to make you be a good submissive and get rewarded for being a good submissive, basically.
yeah. I mean, from when me and you have done calls, it's not necessarily always been sexual because we have just had like chats and things over the phone.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I've done as well. I've like when I phoned her, actually I'd be on a block number, obviously security reasons, and I could talk to her, but then I was only limited to a certain amount of time, like £50 for 5 minutes, £100 for 10 minutes. But as in adult work, for example, you're working off them sort of prices basically, if that makes sense. Like so, they have to make money. I mean, yes, they are fulfilling a fantasy, but then they're taking the time out of their personal day to do the job, like, even when you call in randomly, like, basically, because you
Yes,
don't know
yeah.
what that Dom could be doing at the time. She may not be working. She could be in the car somewhere traveling, but then if she's in the car on the speaker, she can still dominate you through the call because she is the Dom, and she can say like I'm driving now, I'm wearing my leathers, I'm pumping this pedal, or do you wish I was do you wish I was standing on you? And then you say, "Yes, oh, you do, don't you love my boots?" And so on, and it's easy to fall into a role that easily. It's all in the mind and visualizing it and feeling it in the moment and then just feeling it through the phone, basically.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the numerous times where I'm doing a certain something like washing the dishes, and it can be you can be in such a like quote normal situation where you're just doing day-to-day things or like day-to-day chores, and then your phone rings, and you're like, yes, I'm in my latex right now. I'd
Yeah,
love to trample on you. And like, oh, it's great. It's great for the provider being able to be so flexible, especially with like working hours and being able to do what you want to do really. And then as you're saying with yourself, the dominant could be doing whatever and they can still fulfill their role of pleasing you in some shape bleh, in some
yeah.
way, shape or form.
Like, classic example, like you said, like I booked a Skype, which was she was booking Skypes, my very first one, and and she wanted £90, but because I was short, she done me a deal. But then the requirement was I asked her could she wear a cat suit, but because this was a latex skin tight cat suit, it takes nearly half an hour to get on. You can't get it into the outfit, which is understandable. Which is I've been trying to learn about these outfits. Like leather, you can just pull on, but with latex, you have to you have to buy a special cream for the body or and lube and some talcum powder so that you get the outfit on all in one basically. And it was skin tight. But then she had to dress up in a leather outfit, which took minutes instead of an outfit that could take up to 30 minutes or 1 hour to get into because they don't. Some people don't realize how long it takes to get an outfit on. And it takes them get into
Oh
basically.
yeah. Absolutely. I mean, the amount of times I've had conversations with submissives when they're just like, "Oh, could you just throw on a latex outfit?" And I'm like, "No."
No,
Like, no, you can pay me like double or triple depending on especially how fast you want me to do this, because it takes so much time, so much energy, and you have like the lube to go on it, and then you have to wash
yeah,
yourself afterwards and make sure like you have the good equipment, the correct equipment to like actually wash the lube off because god damn it stays on, it's relentless.
yeah. It
And
does.
oh god.
People don't realize how much it is unless you are into it, like and you understand it. Then yes, that's why when I book a custom a week in advance, so she has a week to prepare the custom and then get ready. And as I've asked for the cat suit many times, it takes a lot to get into. Then because then we just start to experiment a bit more. Then when I go through the basic, because people think PVC and latex are the same, but they're not. PVC is more flexible than latex. Latex is more tighter than PVC, if I'm getting that right.
Mhm, mhm, absolutely. So going on to the next question, do you think this can be addictive, phone chats?
Yes, it can be very addictive. Like when you find if you find the right dom, for instance, and she does meet your requirements for like say simple needs of say the outfits and the role play, then that is good. And if it hits you so much after the phone call cuts off, then you get time to call them back again if you want to, like throughout the night, and you can call them if it's okay with the dom to have maybe 3 or 4 calls a night, if that's okay, then or maybe a call every night, once a night, as long as the dom's happy and she's available at the time to take the call, and it can be very addictive for when you're into this particular kink.
Mhm. Do you have anything for like aftercare for yourself?
Well,
We are yet to figure that out.
yeah, uh,
Again, in the previous episodes of Behind the Paddle, we did just cover dopamine, cortisol, and a bunch of other chemicals in the brain. And we talked about how some subs they some don't even realize they might need aftercare, and they don't realize it until somebody speaks about it, or they might not even need aftercare. You never know.
yeah. Like if it's on a call and you're just talking, you are safe. But within a session, if you're in a real time session, aftercare is immediate because have been aware from experience of a YouTube video from another dom. She said she had to have a first aid course ready because a man who was in a session, he actually died during the session, whereas she
Oh.
had to pull him down quickly and she had to bring him back through first aid. But he said he took a Viagra with his tablets, which was a bad mix, and it can be very, very dangerous. And he never made it aware, basically. So you do have to have some sort of first aid and some aftercare during the session. I would say after the session, because even though if your session goes okay, then you can oversee him. But if he's bad, if you have some marks, you have some whip marks or something, and or maybe you've had a bit of a rough play, then yes, then maybe some first aid or some maybe aftercare could be helped in that way, if that makes sense, in aftercare.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love hearing from submissives about different how their brain works and how they see things as well. So I'd say similar to what I said in the previous episodes about brain chemicals is like we're all different. Where like I have had people ring up and not even do extreme stuff, and
No, no.
maybe after they have came or fulfilled whatever they want, then they have rang back for like a nice little talk, a nice little chat, and it's lovely. So I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
it
absolutely.
it does depend on just other people and how their chemicals work, but it's lovely to hear about other submissives and how if phone chat does alter their state and if there is anything afterwards. So we're now going to talk about the positive experiences
Okay.
about having a dom, whether that be online or in person. So, can you tell me about the first time when you felt completely seen, respected, potentially owned, and cared for?
When I was first did tied and teased, I was tied, and I was really looked after because I was being teased by gloves and then by nails, but really like teasing with the nails, but going up the body. And then then we had some face sitting where I had to make sure I was okay. And I was, I was literally looked after until the end of the session, where after I was untied, to say, right, session's over, please get your belongings. And then you go downstairs and you were asked, was that okay for you? And yes, everything was okay. I really enjoyed what we did, and the session went better than I thought it did. And everything, there was nothing really that I was scared of because I'm in complete control she was in complete control the entire time for really having good communication.
So, what was the main purpose of going to an in-person dom?
To actually experience it for yourself for once, to like whether it's like you're watching videos and you're seeing it, to actually experience what it's like to be controlled, to be handcuffed, to be actually tied and handcuffed to a bed, and actually see what it's like to give control up to another person, to be controlled and to be submissive and to be loyal, what it actually feels like in person. And obviously, like you say, when you if a dom allows you to come in after the session basically, and well, she let you have control to have that, or and then or maybe like or maybe fulfill your own fantasy, which I really want to do, just to worship and be loyal to a session basically, to do the less, not the punishment side, but the more the kink side of it, basically to worship a dom, to literally worship a dom's boots, to have breath play, to be tied, and to be worshipped, and then to be tied to a bed, and then she has control over you, and she can do what she wants to do, basically.
Mhm, mhm. Okay. So, I'm guessing this person you did phone chat with before meeting them?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, and how long did you do phone chat for before finally meeting them?
There was about at least 3 calls, because the first call was to ask, this is who it is, basically, to actually hear a voice and be actually blown away that you actually are meeting this person and you are discussing it. Then you went through the fact of phone calls to make sure that we were who we were, and we weren't. This wasn't it wasn't time wasting, basically, to make sure it was all above board. Then we had to have a bank transfer. Then we had a full chat of what we wanted to do, what we liked, what we didn't like, and then again, it was probably one flag I probably didn't look into was, she said, "If I tell you something, you do everything I tell you." Yeah, I said, "Well, what if I don't like it?" And she said, "Doesn't matter, you do it anyway." But I didn't see it as a red flag at the time. Basically, it should have been like a safe word, or stops way of stopping the session, or way of saying, "Okay, no, stop," like just stop the session altogether, basically.
Mhm. So your in-person meets, have they been negative in-person
Right.
sessions?
Yes. The first session was okay, but we had some red flags, but I didn't understand why at the time. Then the second time around was really, really bad, and the session went absolutely downhill badly. It was nothing like I wanted. I did
Okay.
send her.
So
Sorry, go on.
we're gonna before we go on a ramble,
Yeah, yeah, it's okay.
we're gonna I'm gonna ask you, did after the first session, now that we know that it didn't to further on, the next session wasn't as great. Did she in the first session afterwards, um did she give you any aftercare? Did she follow up um after the scene or anything like that? Was there anything like that? Was it
Well,
nurturing?
no, only the fact was I was giving them a glass of water at the end of the session, and she just said to me, "How did your session go? Did you enjoy? What did you enjoy?" And basically, she didn't even say to me, "What is it that you didn't like?" Basically, and it was just like the ins and outs right at the end. It's more like playing it, then asking questions later, where you're supposed to ask questions first before you play, basically. It's like, basically, if you don't know your lines, then you're buggered, basically, in an acting. 'Cause you are acting a role play, basically.
Mhm, mhm. So I'd like to also mention that after the sessions that you had, you rang me and
Yeah,
you then spoke about all this, and then I was like, "That's a red flag. That's a red flag. That's a red flag." And I did explain to you
yeah.
more in detail what a good flag looks like and such. So just for anybody who's listening who thinks, "Oh, he actually knows all of this. Why did like he not realize?" And like it can in general, even if you know all of this, you can still forget the red flags and you can still go over them. Absolutely. Just like any relationship. Absolutely.
Yeah, because at the time I didn't because so new. I was basically I dived in head first instead of going through the ins and outs properly, like in a way. But that was something I did. But like I said in the previously, when I said I didn't want to do something, she said to me, "You have to do it." But I thought maybe in a session, if you say stop, or maybe, but she didn't give me a choice. She just told me to just do as I say, like, and basically, and as I told her on the phone, you will listen to me.
Hmm. So going back to the positive online experience, mistress who you talked about doing OF with and such,
Yeah, Miss
d-
Frankie, babe.
yes, did she make you feel valued at all? Did she was she
Y-
the good part,
Yeah,
basically?
she was. She was the best part of it all. She took in everything. I had all my dislikes, all my likes, all my everything I didn't like and what I wanted, and everything came through good. Like, and we had such a good working relationship together. We literally built up loads and loads of different role plays, and it even came to a point where I was buying outfits which I liked, which I asked if she was okay to wear, and basically to fulfill the fancy, basically. And I did provide a lot of gifts in the time, and she helped me, and she made me feel like that was happy, and we were in a good place, and we got something we can do, and this is something we can carry on. And it was mostly Skype sessions, but again, to do a proper one with her would have cost quad, quadruple amount of money to travel, to get trained to travel, to get to the hotel for the night, to pay for a session. Even if I had a session next day, we're looking about maybe well over £1,000 for something that's only going to last 2 hours, best part of your day, basically, which is good. But then you've got to be willing to put the money if you're willing to do all that. Where I live, I had to go with what I had, basically.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think this is another thing. What's the word? Where you have online domination and you have in person, where online can potentially be cheaper, whereas in person, depending on your circumstances, can be much, much more, which is another reason why some people do go for just online only. And
Yes, absolutely.
I think your story really shows the difference between a really great experience online where there is the fantasy that where there is a very good experience, and even if the negative experience, the person who gave you that negative experience, they could do online as well, which they have done,
Yeah,
and that seemed all great online, but when in person, then there's even more red flags and it doesn't go to plan. So there is still the safety element where online is much more safe than actually meeting in person because what I like to do on this podcast is I like to still say there are bad apples. There are bad apples in every single industry. And
yes, absolutely.
I certainly am not gonna sit here and be like, "Oh yeah, we're all great," and everything like that. Like, I'm sure at some point I'm gonna do an episode on FinDoms, which is a whole different thing. But there's a load of bad apples in that as well.
Yes, absolutely. Because even when I've done before I met her, I met a few people who were doing custom videos, and every custom video I asked for particular role plays, particular things to be done, At the end of it, it really went bad. And I had to email them and say, "What exactly happened with my custom today? It's what you wanted." They said, "No, you've done something at the end, which I didn't ask for, which has ruined it now, and I'm paying you to do the role play, which is what we are paying for." And they were like, "Oh, all right, we'll do it again." But again, even when you ask for the everything in particular, it still didn't go right. And then it was like I kept going to loads of OnlyFans, and a lot of them keep mixing humiliation and domination. I understand they are the elements, but there's a strict line between dominating and humiliating at the same time, basically.
So can
Like you
you,
can,
if you can remember, can you go deeper into that? Because
yeah,
I would love to know more because I'm a bit baffled. So yeah.
like for instance, like I wanted strict role play, which she gave, but then she was giving like a lot of a lot of things I didn't want in the role play. Like she was saying bad things about me. She was saying she was putting me down, and it was like saying like you're nothing like you're nothing but pathetic. You're nothing but bad. And then it came to committing instructions, which I didn't want. And when I specifically said this is what I just wanted, was a straight domination role play custom. It went to humiliation and committing instructions, which is nothing I wanted. Basically, I was looking for more the straight old-fashioned domination where they used humiliation, where they kept getting, which I kept saying in a way, I understand humiliation is part of it, but that's not what I'm asking for you. And they were like, "Oh, okay, then that was just a red flag for me." So I went through a lot, like say 5 or 6 OnlyFans before I met Miss Frankie Babe to who actually listened to me and this and she took in my ins and outs of what I liked and what I didn't like,
Mhm.
basically. Because even though you can have a custom, but then you got to make sure your custom is filmed to your to your role play of when you give them what you want and what you don't want. Whereas some of them are just thinking they're just humiliate men. Where a dom like may love humiliation, but that's not what you're looking for. You're looking for to fulfill a fantasy, not to get a video. That's nothing that's to do with your fantasy or your role play, basically.
Mhm. So I feel like that can come down to a number of things. Either the mistress didn't know fully what exactly you wanted, and that's kind of what it sounds like, where like for me, I need to know exactly what you enjoy, exactly what you don't. Like a
Yeah,
script is actually really beneficial in some ways.
it is. Yes,
And
absolutely.
when I have somebody in person, I'm like, right, what do you not enjoy speaking about? Do you enjoy coming in instructions? Do you enjoy being called pathetic? Because there are so many versions of humiliation, and there are so many versions of like feminization, and so many versions of CBT, and there's versions of everything, and it really needs to be spoken to um really down to the T of like, okay, this is what we're going to talk about, this is what we're going to do. And sometimes it just hits it misses the mark, and sometimes it does
Yeah,
hit the mark.
absolutely. Yeah, that's hitting the nail on the head. Where you do put in your dislikes with the script, what you don't want to do and what you want, and at the end of it, you say, "I don't want this. I don't want this. I just want a straight, natural visual." And it's like, even Miss Frankie Babe said to me in a message, "I can't believe you haven't found a model or even a dom to even fulfill these sort of basic things you're looking for." And I said, "This is exactly my problem. I'm like, I'm looking for the, the natural, straight domination and role play, whereas like they just turn into a humiliation session where even with domination, you're fulfilling a fantasy to worship the woman you want to be with. Like when you first see her on social media where she's in a particular outfit or where she dressed up, for her to be dressed up and to fulfill and do a role, like, if that makes sense, to
Mhm.
do the role you want to do. So that's what you are paying for a service, basically. And if there's going to go wrong, then it's going to it can hurt the business by other DOMs losing money because they may not want some may not want to try it with them in case it happens again. In a way, not putting it down, but then even if we want to try, it does take a lot to reach out again, to actually get what you want, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And that you mentioning that comes with that kind of conjoins with my next questions, which are basically after your negative experience of the in-person session and the online video, and if you have any others as well, like was there closure afterwards, or was it just silence? Like, did the DOMs try to reach out and like come to a peace with you or anything like that? Was there any closure?
Well, not really. After saying the bad things and leaving the message saying, "Look, this is not what I'm looking for," and then after that, they did say, "Well, I apologize for the video, but this is but it's done now." And in the end, it was like it just kept coming down to bad things, like basically, and like you had to like literally speak up and say, "I do not like this," and they're like, "Ah, I thought you liked it." And it goes, "No, I didn't like it because that's not what I asked for. I asked for the script I was given." And then it was just dead silence then, and then it was like, "Well, we are sorry, I didn't realize you liked that and didn't like that." Then you have to speak up and literally s say, "This isn't good enough," basically,
Mhm.
because a lot of people, basically, they're working off the domination line, but they're using it in the wrong ways, basically. Whereas a strict dom would know the difference between dominating and humiliating at the same time, where you're dominating to be a submissive, to behave, be submissive, and to respect the mistress. Where if she wanted to humiliate him and embarrass him, she would do it in a different role. So
Mhm.
basically, getting the roles mixed up, which is what a lot of people have done because they think it's the same thing, where it's not really the same thing, basically.
Yeah, yeah. I would say, well, I'm personally not a strict mistress. I would say that I'm refined, and I have been in the industry for 8 years now, legally. And so I know the ins and outs. I know well, usually I know what exactly to reply with and expect, and how to market myself and advertise
Yes,
um
absolutely.
myself. And so I think it does come down to basically if they are in the lifestyle themselves, or if they just do it for work, and how long they've been in the business, because I have seen people be in the business for years or much longer than myself, and they are still unprofessional in a good few ways. And it depends if they're open to learning from other people and being taught by other people and learning how certain other people do it in the industry, and learning new techniques. Yeah, learning new techniques or sharing those techniques.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, example, I was talking with someone before I came to you, and she described that she was working with a dom, and this dom literally was at her house, and she damaged her property, basically, while trying to help her, and she had to cut her off, and then she explained to me when I told her about my bad experience. She said to me, "Well, basically, to draw this out, you have the DOMs at the bottom who just want to make the money. You got DOMs in the middle who do it okay. Then you got the ones at the very top who are literally doing well and they literally know what they're doing, basically. So it's like a three-way street, basically, of which street do you want to go to and how much are you willing to pay and how much you're willing to travel and are you willing to go away and be with a proper mistress, basically, like yourself as like you're basically maybe over I say maybe 300 miles away from me, but well, 300 miles is a long way basically to travel. And but where if you go to someone who's closer and isn't as professional as they seem, that's where it can come down to, basically.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it depends on so many reasons going to see a dom or choosing online. Where it comes to, because I've had people come from Ireland, Newcastle, London, America, New Zealand to come see me, and
Absolutely.
it depends financially. It depends on your schedule. It depends on so much, and especially if you have a family or anything
S-
like that. But yeah, so we're gonna go into another question. We've kind of we've explored quite a lot on the negatives and things like that, and a lot of
Okay.
my questions which I was going to ask you, you've already answered, which is wonderful.
Okay, brilliant.
Um,
I'm glad to be here, and I'm happy to answer anything you give. And I do say it's an honor being you with you today with this podcast to help others and help them understand and basically to help the people who, if they listen to this now, they know what to look out for and what to be aware of, basically.
oh, absolutely. Did you at any point feel pressured or manipulated?
I did get pressured, yeah, to doing something I didn't want to do, and I really want to do it, as I told her on the phone. I didn't. It was one part of the session I didn't like, but she said to me, "You have to do it, and you do as I say." But even in the session, I was pressured to do something I didn't want to do, which made me feel unhappy and uncomfortable in that moment in time, because basically it should have been where are there because you're paying her for a session where she wants to do what she wanted to do, not what everything I wanted, basically. And I had to make sure that she was in control the entire time. And like we say, it doesn't work from the ground up talking to her, but you have to have a safe word, which I wasn't given, and I didn't give any way to try and stop the session just in case, because I did say before I had the session I was on medication and I do suffer with mental health, which I wanted her to be aware of just in case she overdid it. And then she did do something to me which really hurt me. And there was no safe words given. There was no help. I did try saying stop. I tried stopping, and she wouldn't stop, and I was really hurt badly.
So, did you blame yourself? Did it make you question your worth as a submissive?
Dead yes, and it made me feel really bad.
So I think that ends me interviewing you, and it was so lovely to talk and everything. And yeah, I think we did cover a good majority of um questions where comes to online and offline. So it was very lovely to hear from you. I am now going to kick you from the call so I can carry on.
That's okay. No problem. I just like to say thank you very much, and I appreciate you having me. And I'll be happy to return if you ever like to do this again. It was really lovely speaking with you in person and actually getting all this out in the open, and and helping others and help your podcast as well, which I'm happy to be a part of.
Yeah. Right, thank you very much. Right.
Thank
I
you.
shall remove you.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye. Goodbye.
And it's just us now. And we're still recording. We're doing this. And I've just realized that with me recording with my mic, it's not going to sync up to the video. Because you can't hear him. So I'm gonna need to figure that out. But we'll get on with it. But yeah, as you've just heard from Gareth, you've got the negative side of meeting somebody in person, sadly, where the first session was all right, but then the second session absolutely did not go well. And his online experiences have went so well. Especially because he the location that he's at, it's not really possible that much unless you have quite a bit of money to freely spend to go see Doms. So I am going to talk for a wee bit, and I know this episode's probably going to be an hour long. So, the illusion of safety. Just because it's digital doesn't mean it's harmless. As you heard from Gareth, it really like affected him mentally. Voice-based dom sub relationships can bypass rational defenses. It feels safe until it isn't. One of the most common myths in kink is that online equals safe. That if no one lays a hand on you, the worst that can happen is a little embarrassment. But for many submissives, verbal domination cuts just as deep, if not deeper. Voice-based submission, especially when it's consistent and ritualized, can create powerful neutral associations. When someone calls you mine at the same time every night, it doesn't feel like play. It feels like belonging until it's used against you. The danger lies in the emotional bypass. We mistake digital distance for emotional safety, and by the time our gut says, this is wrong, we're already absolutely attached. And it really sucks for subs like Gareth, where they've went from a really okay experience online, and they have spoken to a dominant about meeting, and he did ignore the red flags because that is absolutely what can happen. I've said absolutely so many times recently, but that is what can happen where it just goes over your head. Grooming and coercion. I don't know how to say that. In the digital age, I'm sure you understand what I mean. Some DOMs use status scripts or personas to wear down resistance, and the fantasy becomes the hook. I know that what you see online it can be just smiles and fakery. It absolutely can be. Um, it is the fake it till you make it to a certain extent, and that sucks, that does, but it is reality. And I've seen, um, yeah, I've literally witnessed a dom who says they are experienced, and then when I've seen them actually play, I've went, are you really? Because now I'm teaching you how to actually use safe words and like traffic light colors, or like use impact or breath play correctly, and it's okay. So grooming in online dom sub dynamics doesn't always look like manipulation at first. It often looks like validation, like you're the most obedient I've ever had, or you're finally what I've been looking for. Over time, subtle coercion creeps in. The Dom may use emotional leverage to pressure a sub into escalating. For example, a real sub would send pictures. Tribute now. You know your place. Don't be soft. Prove you're mine. These phrases may sound like sexy commands, but they're really layered with guilt, isolation, or dependence. They become emotional traps disguised as play. Without ever touching them, a dom can coerce a sub into exposing their body. They can extract money or have financial control. They could obtain personal, intimate information that leaves the sub very vulnerable to shame or blackmail. Now, I have seen this again, being in the industry for so long. I want to really say for so long because it's horrible if you've came in the industry and you're already seeing bad examples of other pro doms where I've seen it firsthand where a pro dom has taken a picture and then they've used it as blackmail without the person knowing, and it is disgusting. It is horrible, and it is a bad um portrayal of what the sex work industry is about. And because it's behind a screen, the sub often doubts whether the harm like counts, and whether it'll actually go anywhere. But it does. It does matter. It absolutely does. When domination becomes exploitation, some DOMs aren't trained. It is that simple to say. There are books out there, there are people like myself you can hire to mentor you and educate you, but sadly, some aren't ethical, some DOMs aren't. And they just like the power trip, they like the money, and they don't care who gets crushed underneath their boots. Anyone can call themselves a dom. That's what you have to remember. The different platforms, like, I don't really want to name names, but like different online platforms, especially like adult work and such, adult work can get fucked. um, they nobody vets DOMs. There is not really a way to vet DOMs. It's like a resume. You can just blag it and get into the job, genuinely. Um, Nobody looks into the ethics, the experience, or the emotional intelligence of the DOM. You like, and if the DOM's got like awards, that that kind of annoys me. And yes, I did win Professional Dominatrix of the Year last year in Scotland. But I worked really hard for that. But there's systems where like your fans can vote. So like they don't actually know you potentially in like a personal realm or an in-person realm. They just know you from the fantasy. And again, you can put on that fantasy. And so it becomes even harder, especially when it turns into in person, if that person actually has the knowledge of what they're doing in person, never mind online. Some DOMs don't understand or realize or want to realize the impact they give and the consequences of that. Some DOMs thrive on admiration, the yeses, the gifts, the devotion, but they never ask, is this sustainable? Are you actually able to afford this? Or how is my submissive doing afterwards? There, again, there will be DOMs out there who do this. Sometimes there aren't. Again, there's ego-driven dominance where they escalate intensely without negotiation. They punish without consent. They ghost after deep emotional sessions, whether that be online or in person. They don't believe. Mm. Some don't believe in aftercare. Some don't even realize what aftercare is. The amount of times that I've taught dominance what aftercare is, and they've just went, "Oh, okay. That's understandable. That makes sense." And some dominants don't actually believe it is their responsibility for the aftercare. And in the silence they leave behind, a submissive is left wondering if they were ever seen as human. That is how deep it can get. Domination without care isn't domination, it's abuse in a corset. It really is. And there's been subs who have had the whole, she told me I was her property, then she never texted. So, like, the healing and the red flags after the call ends. So, what happens when you've been burned by a voice you trusted? When your Dom isn't who she said she was? When the line goes dead, but the hurt doesn't? Your first step into healing in any Dom sub harm, digital or otherwise, is naming it. And that means giving yourself permission to say, this happened, it hurt, and it matters. That's one of the like things you do need to say to yourself is like, this happened, it hurt, and it does matter. It has altered me and it has taken effect. It wasn't just online. The phrase just online is often used to dismiss trauma. It's not like she touched you. You never ever met that person. You couldn't just have blocked her. These are often replies to, I want to say, the submissives reaching out for help and actually speaking out about mistreatment. But here lies the truth. Your body doesn't know the difference between a physical dungeon and a psychological one made of voice, which has rituals and attention, and it has your heart in some ways. If a Dom had you kneeling during phone calls, calling her mistress, begging for approval, that was real submission. If she made you feel small, ashamed, or broken when you couldn't meet her demands, that was real harm. The shame, the trust you gave, the silence she left you in, that's not a fantasy hangover. That's emotional trauma. The connection was real. Even if you paid for the call, even if it started as a role play, if she made you feel seen, owned, adored, and then withdrew without care, the impact can be shattering. Emotional intimacy doesn't require a body, and neither does emotional injury. Don't let anybody convince you it was just play. Your heart doesn't wear a safe word. If it felt real to you, then it was. The pain from emotional abuse often goes unrecognized in Dom sub relationships because it hides behind a mask of consensual power exchange. But the but if the power was uneven, if the care was absent, if the consent was manipulated, then what you experienced was not kink. It was exploitation wrapped in language that sounded sexy. And it's okay to mourn what you thought it was. It's okay to grieve someone you trusted. It's okay to feel embarrassed, confused, or furious. And to hold space for all of that without minimizing your story. You don't have to defend your pain. You only have to honor it. That's the first act of healing, the first act of power you can take back. I feel like we've already touched on the red flags. Now we're gonna talk about money and gifts without negotiation, or a dom trying to persuade you to get gifts or give money. And it's roundabouts the same as what we've really spoken about, where it's you want to serve me, send £200, then we'll talk. Now, there are things such as if you do want to DM a Dom, then sometimes they do want 20, $80, maybe even sometimes 120. I understand where that's coming from because you don't want to we are giving a service, absolutely. And we do not want to dedicate our time to something that will go nowhere, where it will not profit us in the way of business. So we're going to ignore that side because that side is honestly kind of valid. Because, like, I charge for consultations and I do see it as a form of consultation when somebody does want to come into your space, especially if they haven't filled out your form or went by the rules of contacting you. And we will talk about on another podcast episode findoms. If a dom dismisses or mocks your boundaries, for example, don't be a baby, a real sub would go further. You'll do it when I say you're ready. That's not domination, that's emotional gaslighting. A boundary is not a suggestion, and you should keep your boundaries, honestly. A good dom sees a boundary as an invitation to build trust, not an obstacle for her fantasy. or their fantasies to be fair, because you can be a dom in general, whatever gender you are, so their fantasy. And we're gonna finalize this in a second. Maybe another 5, 10 minutes. Where anybody can call themselves a dom. It doesn't mean they understand what power is, only that they know how to claim it, potentially. The title Dom is not a license to degrade, it's a responsibility to protect. The best online Dom sub relationships aren't built on intensity, it's built on intention. What does ethical online Dom sub relationships look like? So you've got clear check ins. For example, how was that for you? Do you feel grounded? Do you need to speak afterwards? Like aftercare. And just checking up on them. Like some subs might not want that, which is absolutely fair. We're talking more on like a deeper level. So consent isn't just a one-time checkbox. It's ongoing, active, evolving, and the Dom, of course, can absolutely speak on whether they're in a scene, role playing online and such, and in person. They can check in at any point. There is no rules in saying you don't check in. And to go back to previous episodes about the chemicals in our brains, we talked about aftercare. I will be doing an episode at some point about aftercare. Aftercare always comes up, but I will be doing an episode on aftercare at some point because there are ways that you can communicate while in scene without even speaking. And the Dom also needs to have emotional accountability. So, like, if the Dom messes up, they need to own it. They need to repair what has happened in whatever way. And they shouldn't vanish. They shouldn't hide behind a username or a blocked number or anything like that. My final words. If a Dom can command your body or your wallet, they should also be able to hold your trust. And it takes a heck of a lot on both sides. But being a dom, you're a protector, you really are. You have so much, especially when you're doing it professionally. You have so much to think about and you need to really learn all of it. Resources for subs. Reddit's great. Reddit is absolutely great if you have had a bad time or anything. There are safe Discord spaces and of course therapy. Therapy is always great. I definitely encourage people to go to therapy. And yeah, I think that's where we're going to end it. I have been, well, we've been speaking for about an hour and a half, just under that now. And yeah, this has been Behind the Paddle podcast. I think I might rename the episode. I'm not too sure, but we'll see. And yeah, this episode has been about in-person DOMs and online DOMs and how online DOMs are they're good, they're great, but it can also turn bad, not so great, and how it is a fantasy in the reality. And I'm sure we will do more episodes on this because it's not as simple as just one episode. But yeah, thank you very much for listening to Behind the Paddle podcast with me, Paulson Victoria. I hope you have enjoyed this long episode. And yeah, if you want any topics or anything like that, or if you want to come on the podcast to talk about something, then you're more than welcome to come. If you are a company and you want to advertise your product or send me something, that you are more than welcome to do that as well. I know that I am to do 2 reviews on some toys. I'm very excited. But yeah, if you'd be so kind to give reviews on the podcast on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to, that'd be great. But yeah, this has been Behind the Paddle podcast with me, Paulson Victoria. and guest Gareth. Right, bye.